Hello, everybody. We're back a bit later than expected, but we are still here. It is, of course, Newcastle on Saturday. Massively quick turnaround from the Leicester game. I'm joined by Dan for the pre-match chat. Dan, how are we doing this week, mate? All good?
Yeah, mate, I'm all good. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, look, listen, we're picking up the wins when we need to. Hopefully, it's a relaxed game on Saturday. Famous last words. You look at Newcastle. You'd say they're safe, mate. Do you think that's fair, or do you think they can get dragged back in?
I think anyone, mate, from Southampton down is still in that relegation fight for me, in that fodder. Newcastle, I think the results have gone their way, obviously, haven't they, with Fulham losing a bit recently. But, you know, Newcastle, they got tails are up after their result against Burnley. It was a massive 3 points for them. Probably the most important game of the season. They've pulled it out of the bag when it's mattered most. So their confidence will be up here for Saturday.
That's why I said it, because I think going into a game like this, where for me, I think they're safe just because of how Fulham aren't performing and they got beat by Wolves last minute. And for me, I just can't see Fulham getting enough goals to put Newcastle under a bit of pressure.
Shame, innit?
It's a shame. It's a shame for Scott Parker, on that note, because I think he's done really well with that side. They just lack a natural goal scorer. Newcastle, on the other hand, Alan Saint-Maximin comes back in on Sunday afternoon and he does the business, mate. And that's what he's all about. He's their spark of creativity. He can get an odd goal. He can create a bit of magic from nothing. Is there any worries from you, mate? I was there when he battered us when we lost 3-2 at the London Stadium. But do you think he can turn up again?
Yeah, when he finished Zabaleta, remember that.
I'll never forget it. Roberto was in goal.
Zaboni. No, yeah, he's a very good player. You know, he's had a very stop and start season. He contracted COVID, didn't he? Had a few setbacks with that. He's quite prone to a few injuries as well. But you could tell from the minute, mate, him and Wilson came on against Burnley, all of them players around them two, the confidence went up. As a team, they looked unified. They looked like a team that had been nowhere near the relegation zone this season. You know, they're playing some good football. Obviously, Saint-Maximin scored that goal. Superb finish. Great skill as well. And he had a hand in Jacob Murphy's goal as well. So I think, mate, you know, if them two are starting on Saturday, there's a bit of a problem there because obviously the two danger men. But without them, I wouldn't think we'd have a problem. But yeah, we need to stop them, especially Saint-Maximin, because he makes them tick in every aspect.
Yeah, a lot of the play goes through him. I thought they threw him up front, really. I think they played I looked it up, it was like a 5-3-2. Yeah. I couldn't understand why Saint-Maximin was almost like I'm not saying a false nine, but a little bit deeper, ready to carry that ball. And then obviously they had Matt Ritchie and Murphy that were going to get that kind of width and bomb on as well. But they really rely on them, mate. And even the fact that they had Callum Wilson there just to give the Burnley defenders something else to think about caused them a few issues. And I think we've got more than enough to go and to cope with them. Me personally, I think West Ham have got more than enough, even with the injuries. But is there any worry for you that we could get caught off guard by someone like a Callum Wilson, chomping at the bit, loves to play against West Ham?
I think he's very intelligent, is he? Obviously, he loves playing against West Ham as well. He said that before. There's a bit of animosity there, isn't there? But I think positionally, he's very intelligent. He picks up, positions that, maybe are behind a defender that they wouldn't normally see. And he's very intelligent. He's very intelligent forward. So him and, Saint-Maximin will, if they have counter-attacks, they'll probably cause us a few problems, mate, naturally, on transition. But like you said, I think we have enough to deal with them, especially if we stick with that back five and Ogbonna comes back in. I think I'm fairly confident.
Yeah, my predicted team is out, everyone, tomorrow at 9:00, so you can check out what I've gone for. I'll try and keep it. I'll try and keep myself relatively closed off. I won't give away too many clues.
Subtle,
Dan's probably hit it on the head there anyway. Listen, Newcastle aren't a great side. I think I've watched a few of their games this season, and defensively for me, that they've got a bit of the Roger Johnson syndrome where they start to back off, and they did it against Burnley on Saturday with Chris Wood. And listen, I think this is a great opportunity for West Ham to get some of our ball carriers in. Obviously, Fornals, Lingard, but also Benrahma, who hasn't really played regularly. And these are the type of games where I think Benrahma's going to thrive. Would you agree? Would you put him in there?
No.
What?
I wouldn't. Nah.
Why?
You wouldn't change. I don't change a winning team. I don't think you change a winning team. I think The only change I would make is Ogbonna for Cresswell. It will be a big miss with his deliveries and set pieces, especially against a team like Newcastle. Because did Souček score against them last season from a set piece? It was one. It bounced to him and he tucked it in. So I see what you mean about Benrahma. He could make an impact off the bench, but for me, I think you stick with the same attacking lineup as last game with Bowen, Lingard, Fornals. Fornals' work rate as well, especially doubling up with St. Maximin. I think that'll be crucial because I don't think Benrahma has that as much in his locker. So I'd stick with the same.
Really, you wouldn't go to a back four? Because I've seen quite a lot of people talking about maybe just having Angelo and Dawson, and again the left back is a bit of an issue for me. You don't play Masuaku there. If you're going to play anyone, you play Ben Johnson. But you'd be more than happy just to see a same lineup, same performance level. And to be fair, in fairness to you, Dan, before I write you off, we have scored 3 goals every game in the last 3.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're not going to score.
Yeah. There's argument for a forward back, definitely, like you've said. I wouldn't be so confident with Masuaku in it as a flat left back at all, especially against St. Maximin, because we know he likes to fiddle about with it at the back and make some rash decisions. But there's definitely argument for it. But I just think we stick with the same formula that we've been very productive with the last 3 games, especially against Wolves. Wolves look to counter as well with Neto, Traore, and our back 5 dealt with that relatively well. Very well, in fact, until the second half. So I'd stick with the same. I know Newcastle are less of a threat as Wolves are, but they've still got some players that can cause trouble. Especially Almiron, Wilson, St. Maximin. So we need to be wary of that counter-attacking threat as well.
Yeah, it is a good point. I think it's because you look at the way that Newcastle play. Again, their main point of creativity is through transition. That's really where they rely on it, and that's why they've performed okay with St. Maximin and Wilson. And take them out, Joel Linton's not exactly the same level. Neither is Dwight Gale. But I think it is a game that West Ham are going to have a lot of the ball in. And in the past 3 games, we've had very, very little of it. We've been decent in possession, a lot more composed, and maybe we're showing signs that we're improving in that sense. But for me, I would have Benrahma in there because I think we need players that are going to get on the ball, be productive with it. I know there's an argument, and listen, I've told you before, Benrahma's kind of the hill that I'll die on, but I think it's an opportunity for him to influence things and show people. And I just feel that if we've got a lot of the ball, then you are going to need really good ball players in there. And for me, that's the way to go. But I completely see your point, mate. There's no right opinion here.
No, listen, Benrahma's probably a better player on the ball than Fornals is in terms of ability, but I just see it as you stick with the same winning formula, and then if we were chasing a goal with about half an hour to go, or even when we started the second half, I think you bring Benrahma on. Then when the game opens up a bit more, Newcastle aren't as compact, because I think they'll set up the game. They'll approach the game in a very compact manner. The midfield will be compact. They won't allow Lingard to get on the ball. We'll mainly have our joy in the wide areas. So I think, in that sense, once the game opens up a bit, it allows Benrahma and Lingard to have more freedom in them pockets where they can find the spaces and flourish. But I think, to set up with, get Fornals on St. Maximin, double up with him and, Masuaku as well, because Masuaku struggled last game, or if Johnson goes there maybe, and go from there.
Yeah, I think you spoke about half spaces. Like when you've got Lingard and Benrahma at times on the pitch, it's great to play behind them. And I kind of look at Shelvey and I look at Newcastle's midfield in general, and I don't feel. We'll talk about Shelvey, but I don't feel defensively that they have those attributes that West Ham's defensive midfielders have. We've seen with Mark Noble in recent weeks slotting back. Shelvey's the type of guy that he's a bit aggressive. He's got a problem with his discipline, and he just really wants to go and pick up the ball off the centre backs and spray it. And I feel that Newcastle are fairly limited in terms of how they can hurt West Ham, which is probably why I've gone for a slightly more ambitious lineup.
Yeah, I completely get your point. Hayden's been a big miss for them. He got injured against West Brom, didn't he? He's been, because he is more reliable defensively. He's more of an all-rounder compared to Shelvey. Like you said, Shelvey's got a very good passing range. He likes to get forward, but defensively he's a bit of a liability. So they brought in Longstaff, haven't they, recently? He was apparently better than Rice.
It's going well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going really well for that.
Joe Shelby probably reckons he's better than Rice as well.
Jonjo Shelby probably reckons he's better than prime Iniesta, mate, to be honest. Yeah. Yeah, Zidane, yeah. But no, I get your point from that sense, definitely. I think you'll probably see them two as a double pivot. Longstaff will probably, I imagine, play a bit deeper than Shelby, won't he? Although Longstaff has a good shot on him as well. So from that point of view, he could look at it and think, yeah, we'll add Benrahma in there, or we'll put Benrahma in there instead of Fornals. There's definitely an argument for it, and Benrahma does need some game time for sure.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be interesting, mate, because I think they brought Joe Willock in, didn't they, in January or at the end of January? And I know he pinched that goal against Spurs, but I think it just gives him a little bit more energy in the park. Someone's going to carry the ball. Decent player. And I think, had he not been playing, I probably would have felt even more comfortable, because I just know that Willock is a guy that works hard off the ball, decent on the ball, gets into the box, gives him another option. So, again, I think people are worried. I've seen comments before, not in terms of Newcastle's opposition, but just because you touched on it the other week. Our record against Newcastle is a little bit shaky.
It's not great.
Do you think that's got any? Do you think the players are thinking about that? I know, again, we're a different beast this season, but do you reckon that comes into the thinking?
Yeah, there's definitely some subconscious, thoughts going on there, isn't there? There's defo that mentality side of it where they think, we struggled against these this season, but I'm sure they'll be very determined to get one back on them, won't they? They'll be very determined to prove a point. People writing us off after that game saying, listen, they're favourites to go down now. Here we are today, 1 point off third. So I think the players will be even more determined to not, make it happen again. Because the first game, I thought, against them, we were poor. We were very poor. We were awful. In fact. Yeah, and obviously for Newcastle, to give them a heads up, especially with their win the other day as well. So, I know what you mean, mate. But I think hopefully the players don't let it happen again, and we can tell Shelby who's boss. So.
Yeah, no, definitely, mate. It's a good opportunity to get one back on that front. I kind of want to touch on the changes in systems for Newcastle this season. When they played us, I think they played a 4-4-2. They kind of at time played a 4-3-3. Now we're seeing 3 at the back from Steve Bruce. Any worries from you, mate, in terms of those wing backs? We've seen Murphy grab that goal against Burnley. Richie's got really good delivery from the left. Any worries that Newcastle could try and bombard our box a little bit, or possibly even try and get that ball into St. Maximin where they know that he's going to cause Noble a few issues?
Possibly. I think they like to overlap, don't they? And St. Maximin will probably come as an inverted forward and occupy them pockets. And Richie, like you said, has got a very, very good delivery. So from that sense, it's there's a threat there for sure. But Wilson's okay in the air. He's comfortable, but he's not the best, especially against Ogbonna. So I think Ogbonna coming back will be a massive boost for us. If they had Carroll, meanwhile, if they played Carroll, it'd be a bit of a threat as well. But Murphy as well. I don't know if Murphy's a good crosser, mate, to be honest. I watched him against Burnley.
Decent, man.
Yeah.
I think he's all right.
Yeah, so, from that sense, mate, definitely. If they overlap as well, or and get into dangerous areas where they can pull it back for Wilson or St. Maximin and Co, there is threats there. But I think, with that back 5, back 4, we'll contain that well.
Yeah, back 5 for me. I think when you go with that, that's more than enough to contain Newcastle, because they are very one-dimensional. Interesting you mentioned Angelo Ogbonna. I've been crying for him to get back into that side, because we know how much we've missed him. And they're gone a little bit under the radar, I think, from opposition fans, from all the arguments that I've had over the past week. Look, mate, do you throw him back into this game? I think it's a game that West Ham can win without him. Or do you kind of look at that Chelsea game and think, if Ogbonna needs a little bit more time, maybe save him for that? Because unfortunately, we've lost Aaron Creswell, and we'll touch on the impact of that. But do you save Angelo, and maybe introduce him later on, or would you like to see him in this game, consolidate the points, and not have complacency set in?
It's a good question. I'd throw him straight in terms of he'd be my direct replacement for Cresswell. You could put Johnson in there. Johnson would do a job as a left-sided centre-back, I'm sure. And there is, like you said, argument that, save Angelo for Chelsea, make sure he's fully fit for them. Because imagine if we get another defensive injury this weekend, or he comes back and he's injured, it's alarm bells. But I'd probably throw him back in. Unless you go with a back 4, you have Dawson and who's the other one? Ogbonna.
Deal.
Sorry, yeah. And then you have Masuaku and Zoufal either side, but I just worry about Masuaku's defensive
I can't have
awareness.
him at left back, mate. I can't have him at left back. I worry.
I think Moyes might drop him anyway after that last game. I think Moyes might say, "Listen, if you're going to funny about with a ball and stuff like that, and nearly cost us 3 points, I'll give young Ben Johnson a go and see what he can do against a very tricky player." But I do feel as though it's a difficult game to throw Johnson in on the other hand as well, because he's up against one of the trickiest players in the league. He's dancing around here, and St. Maximin will probably look at Johnson on the starting lineup and think, "Listen, I fancy your chances." That's no disrespect to Johnson, because he's a very good defender and I like him, but it's a fact that St. Maximin is a very tricky customer, and he causes any fullback issues on his day, doesn't he? So.
He does. And if there's a variability in the play, if Newcastle were playing maybe in 4 in midfield, I'd be more inclined to agree. I just feel that they're not going to get the ball to St. Maximin possibly as much as we think they are. I think they're going to. I think Newcastle will sit off us a fair bit, be slightly concerned, and then obviously we've got to take the front foot. But I would go with your point, and I have said it before. When we go with a back four, for me, Johnson has to play. I don't trust Masuaku. I know I built him up, and I rewatched the last 20 minutes of that Leicester game, mate, and I got it wrong in terms of effective pressing, and every single ball was coming down that side. And these type of games, you can't afford for complacency to get in there, because Callum Wilson will stretch the play. I've watched Newcastle play. They use their forward men to try and stretch the game a little bit more. If you've got Murphy then on the overload on that right hand side, and Masuaku's there, you're giving them unnecessary opportunities, and we don't need to do that. We can play a back four, and if we do play a back four, Johnson comes in, because I think 1-to-1 he can deal with it. But you need Fornals to get tracked back and protect him as well. That's why he plays.
That's why he plays over Benrahma for me, yeah. But I know Benny works hard, and his work rate's improved. But especially as well, mate, what we mentioned about Shelby before is if he's getting the ball, got a bit of space, and he can spray it out to that left-hand side where Masuaku's not, lapse of concentration, as we saw against Leicester, at any point in the game, and St. Maximin drifts in behind him, or Almiron drifts in behind him, as a problem. Because Albrighton's a very good player, but he's not as quick as them two. Them two are really busy players. Almiron probably not the best in terms of end product, but he's always alert. If you switch off for a second, especially Masuaku, they'll get in behind you, and then Callum Wilson will be lurking in an area, coming alive to do what he always does, and that score a goal. So it's difficult. But as well, mate, St. Maximin, what he'll do is, like Lanzini used to do, if he's not getting into the game, he'll drop deep.
Yeah.
He'll drop deep, and we need to be aware of that and really compact in the middle to stop him from drifting into spaces, carrying the ball forward and causing issues. Yeah,
I completely agree, mate. Like, whether you play a 4-2-3-1 or the system we're playing now, 5-3-2, you are looking to try and deal with those central pockets, and I don't think we've been great at doing that. I think Leicester had a fair bit of joy through us, in the last
Arsenal
game
as well.
Wolves, so that has been problematic since Declan's dropped out. One of the areas that I would like to see West Ham really showcase in this game is pressing from the front, which is kind of why I've changed the system up. And I feel that if we put Newcastle's defenders under significant pressure, they are going to make mistakes. They are going to make errors. And I wonder whether, listen, it's gutting not having Mikel Antonio, because I'm sure this is a game that he'd love it. He'd have the bit between his teeth. But Jared Bowen, I think he's going to show us what he can be like in that 9 role. What are your thoughts on Jared Bowen, mate, in terms of, do you think he can adapt to that 9 role a little bit? We've seen it in the past couple of games. Did you think he's going to take it to another level, get a little bit more composed in front of goal? Because at the minute, he's churning out goals. So
he is, I've when he's not played well this season, I've been the first to shout it. But, he's a fair play. It's his first full Prem season. He scored more goals than Mane, Rafinha, Pepe, Grealish, Mount, Martial, top players. And it's his first full season. Yeah, well, I said Pepe,
yeah, lovely stuff.
There you go, just dropping that bombshell in there.
Just making sure, man.
Exactly. No, Pepe's got 4, mate. 5, 4. Yeah, but no, Bowen's done really well. He impresses me the more I watch him, mate, to be honest, because I think his movement's very intelligent. He came on against Wolves, occupied the space between the two centre-backs, and that finish from a tight angle was superb. And I think he's grown in confidence the more he plays. I think he's obviously a utility player. He can play anywhere across the forward line. We've seen that before. We've seen that for Hull. And I think he'll relish the chance to play there again on Saturday. With his mobility as well, with Lingard around him. I think that's a position he can really make a statement to, make his own in a sense, because I think he's very good as a winger. But I could also see him being a very good forward as well, which gives him a shout to say in the summer, do we need 2 strikers or do we need 1? Because Bowen can play there. Do you know what I mean? So it's a chance for him to.
Don't go there, man. 2 strikers,
no,
please.
No, but yeah, like you said, mate, pressing from the front. I want, like we did against Wolves, we set off there where we really high intensity press, didn't give their centre backs much time on the ball, and if you do that, you'll force, especially Newcastle, into mistakes, and Bowen can thrive. But yeah, Bowen's been magnificent the last few games, and he's a fair play to him. He's took his opportunity.
So impressed in the last game, mate. Just his overall play. We were worrying a little bit going into that Leicester game. He's not great at hold up, and that was our only concern with Lingard and Bowen. But Bowen was drawing fouls. And what you see as well for Lingard for the second goal, the way he's dragged him out of position, again, he's sitting right on the shoulder. So I do wonder whether he will become almost like that number 9. It's hard, isn't it, with Bowen, because he's not the biggest, he's not the best in terms of physical presence, but just in terms of stretching games a little bit, his movement for that Wolves goal was really, really good. And I love seeing Jesse and Bowen play together. And maybe the thing that's gone under the radar a little bit is the fact that Bowen stepped up without Mickey in the side. And I think that's going to do him a world of good. Yeah,
no, exactly. I know he had a few games on the bench, didn't he? He was getting a bit frustrated, perhaps, with Mickey obviously doing so well this season, like he normally does. So, naturally, Bowen would have been frustrated because he's got a lot of ability. We seen that last season towards a lot of stages when he came in, scored against Southampton, that chip, and you thought immediately from then, this guy's got something about him, because that was a great finish.
Did Fornals make the assist in that game?
Yeah, threaded it through. Yeah,
tasty pass, wasn't it? Just remember.
Great assist. Yeah, really nice, wasn't it? The limbs as well, mate, were class. But no, Bowen's a good player and will only improve. He's 24, 25. Like you said, he's not the best in terms of being physically imposing, but he's very intelligent, drawing fouls. Like you said, he's drawn the most fouls out of the whole squad this season. By quite a stretch, I think Antonio's second, but he uses his body well. He can draw fouls, draw defenders with him, and create space in behind for other players to, like Lingard and Fornals to operate in. So he's a very intelligent player, Bowen. I don't think people realise just how intelligent he can be on and off the ball as well. So he's a top player that he'll only improve.
I saw a thread on social media. I can't remember whether I sent it to you or not, but they were talking about Bowen's movement in the box with Souček. And the more you think about West Ham, because obviously we were only used to having one striker or having a layer at one point, and actually it was the runs of Souček and Bowen into the box that made the difference. Whether or not they actually scored directly from it, in terms of creating space for our players, that's where West Ham have benefited. I just think, as a winger, he's a little bit predictable. He's always going to cut in onto the left. He's got good pace and he drives at players and he works hard. And again, there's a time and a place for it. But I just think in those central little pockets, he's not probably the best technically. He's not going to play like a number 10, but I think his finishing's massively underrated. I know he's not been decisive enough this season, but you look back to before the Leicester game he just played, the Leicester game in the reverse fixture, the finish is just absolutely superb. And he took his finish so well on Sunday. So I can only see him improving, mate.
Exactly. And if you probably look, mate, back through all of his goals, I'll be interested. I'm going to research this, how many goals he scored in central areas since he's been with West Ham. I bet most of them are in central areas. You know what I mean? I bet few of them are from, a very tight or out wide position. And like you said, when you're a winger, it's very difficult because if you're one-footed, like Bowen is, it's very predictable. It's very easy to suss out. And that's probably where he had his little difficult run of form this season, because defenders were sussing his game, sussing what he's about and nullifying him to a sense. But since he's had that versatility, Moyes has trusted him to play in that role because he knows he can do it. Bowen's got a new lease of life and it's given him more confidence. And that's why, for me, he's a vital part of this squad and this team. Because he's a good player.
Yeah, and he'll only improve. I think we've got quite a few players like that, and they're still relatively young, and their ceiling's going to get larger and larger. Aaron Creswell is out for 3 weeks. He just goes from bad to worse with the injuries, mate. How do you think that's going to impact us? We clearly are going to miss his deliveries from set pieces. That's a huge issue for me. That's probably gone slightly under the radar. he has his tendencies, doesn't he? Even a left-sided centre-back to get pulled out occasionally. But going forward, mate, do you think that's going to hamper us a fair bit? We haven't really scored from set pieces recently. It's all been transitional play. So do you think we'll get away with it for the next 3 weeks, mate?
Yeah, obviously, he's a big loss, mate, isn't he? I think he's been one of our best players this season. He's right up there for me in terms of. I know previous seasons he's had weaknesses to his game. He's been a target, and this season he's had some dodgy performances like all the players have this season. Whether that be Newcastle or whatever. But I think his main outlet is his delivery. How he's so good, mate, from a dead ball situation. Probably one of the best in the league, to be fair, with that delivery that he's got. Superb, whether that be from a corner, free kick. So I think we will, mate, but it gives a chance again for Masuaku to show what he can do offensively, like we spoke about after the Leicester game. He's in defensive areas. That's another problem. But going forward, he's probably better on the ball than Cresswell. He's got good dribbling ability. He can get out of tight situations. So that might give us a different dynamic going forward. So it'd be interesting to watch.
Yeah, my heart can't take him playing at left side, left back.
Neither.
So I hope that if we do see him, it's a left wing back. But again, that is a good point, mate, in terms of him losing the ball. And I don't think it was just some of our decision making when we're put under pressure. It's not great. And again, I think we'll get away with it with Newcastle. We might not with St. Maximin, but against Chelsea, and I'm looking at that. I'm looking at this as almost like the warm up to that a little bit. I'm not overlooking it, but Chelsea's obviously the bigger game.
Massive.
When we get that ball and the pressure's on us, just to make the right pass. And for 70 minutes against Leicester, we were making the right passes. The minute there's a bit of pressure, anxiety on the situation, Benrahma for me wins the ball, beats two men, and then plays the wrong pass.
Yeah,
that type of management. Do you think we can get that into our game between now and the end of the season? Because listen, we know we've spoke about it. These are basically cup finals now for us to go and compete and try and get into that top four. Do you think these players are going to switch on and they're going to start treating the games be a little bit more conservative in those situations?
We have to, because from the last 3 games, the way we switched off and giving the ball away and being sluggish in the latter stages is concerning, mate, isn't it? There's alarm bells there. You do wonder as well, will the fact that Champions League is lurking, will it get to the players a bit? Will it be in their minds? I know naturally Moyes will say, we're just focusing on us, just focusing on our next game, taking each game as it comes. But deep down, they know where they are. Yeah. They know what's at stake. None of them players have been in this position before, I don't think. I can't think of any. So naturally,
maybe Lingard being in a top 4 contention.
Yeah. Well, Lingard, and probably a few others in terms of Oggy for Juventus as well. But subconsciously, mate, it will always be up there. They'll always be thinking about it as a player, definitely. But that's why our squad have been so good at this season, and Moyes is so good at as well. The fact that psychologically you need to deal with the highs and lows of football. To be a good player and to go far, to be a successful team, which is what we have been this season, mentality is the most important thing in it, massively. And the last few games that has fluctuated definitely. The fact we started so well, then giving it away, and you're thinking, what the hell are you doing? But I'm sure Moyes will drill that into them every day, saying, you cannot be so sluggish. Because I guarantee you, mate, after the Leicester game, he was absolutely fuming.
Oh, mate, he was growling on the sideline, wasn't he? He was saying, what are you playing at? And a lot of that came down to Arthur Masuaku's pot. And that's what I'm saying. It's not even... That's the mad thing about Arthur. I know he does his silly roulette spins and all this type of thing, but he got out of a situation and he just had to play a simple pass. And it's not... A player like that with that technical quality, he's got it in his locker. Well, play it along or play a switch pass or do something, but don't give the ball away.
Yeah.
Do you think this? We speak about the summer all the time, and I'm sure we'll talk about Felipe Anderson and Lanzini and all these rumours kicking around at the minute. But do you think we need to go out there and get a centre midfielder that can really keep the ball? I know Declan Rice is very good at it and decent in possession, but just a player that we can bring on in these type of games if we get into Europe in the competitions that just keeps possession for long enough just to take pressure off that back 4 and back 5.
One player I've been linked with this week who did that very well when he was here was João Mario. Very, very, very good on the ball. Very good at keeping the ball. Obviously plays in a possession-based team. For Inter's been used to that for many years. So if he's a free agent, mate, and he's been in contact with us already, you'd bring him in, wouldn't you? I know he's more of an attacking-based player, and are you on about someone more central, just like for Rice and Souček as a backup?
No,
Yeah.
I think João Mario played in deeper positions naturally because West Ham was sitting so deep. But I don't think it really matters. I say exactly the same about Benrahma. Benrahma can play in a more advanced role, but making the right pass and keeping the ball long enough is exactly what he needs to be doing in his game to be getting more credit with West Ham fans. Because when he's not scoring goals or getting assists, when people see him lose possession, they go, "What are you playing at, mate? You should have the better technical quality to do it." So I think there is a bit of a go on.
Do you interject?
That's right.
Sorry, mate. Do you think that because Benrahma's he's not starting, he's not getting as many minutes, do you think he comes on and he thinks, I need to perform here, I need to show the manager what I can do? That's why he does all these tricky, flashy bits later on in the game when we're trying to conserve our lead. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think there's definitely a bit of that. I think that's, again, why I kind of give him a bit of leeway, because he's coming on 20 minutes and maybe he's trying to showcase himself. But I feel like we saw that a little bit with Fornals at times, when he's working so hard that he's not slowing himself down. And for me, it only feels in the last couple of weeks or so, just calms himself down in possession, keeps the ball nicely. We know he's a technically good player. And I'm sure it will come with Benrahma. We hear Moyes is going to give him another year. Listen, it was never a Moyes signing, if we're honest. But if he can get that into his game, it's going to buy him more time with David Moyes. And I think that could be the argument for Arthur Masuaku, a player that is almost that good technically that they feel so comfortable. But at the end of the day, we've got to realise the situation we're in. And some of these players just need to get that decision-making process, mate. It's a tough one because a lot of those players have never been in that position. But yeah, I know what you mean, mate. It's a spot on point. I'm sure he's in the back of his mind thinking, I've got to try and get him with a manager here to make me almost, undroppable at times.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised from talks this week, mate, if Benrahma's not a West Ham player this time next year. Wouldn't surprise me.
Really?
No.
Maybe. I think he's always on a sticky wicket because I just don't believe he was the Moyes signing. I think that was always the problem. No. I think where I've been probably more likely to give him a bit of leniency is because I do think he has tried to add work rate to his game. But for him to be in contention to start every week, again, he's got to go to another level. Either get more goals.
Yeah.
In product, yeah. I think he influences things though in the final third. I got to be honest, I still think he does do that. But I think his just overall play, I think that's what Moyes is getting at. Keeping the ball in the right times, making the right decisions, making the right passes.
Yeah, it's his
exactly.
Team play.
That's exactly what it's about. We know what Moyes thinks of players in terms of not just what they do on the ball, but what they do off it. And he's got to get that into his game, mate. That's why Felipe Anderson's not here anymore.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Exactly what I was going to say. That's why he binned off Anderson, because he was an individual player. I know people banging about, Anderson did his tracking back, but Anderson was very selfish, very similar in terms of giving the ball away, being frustrating on the ball, and that's what concerns me about Benrahma and why I wonder if he's Premier League quality and if he'll fully adapt. Yes, he's got a lot of ability. He's seen his tricks, he's seen his nutmegs, but that's not enough in football, is it? In the Premier League, for where we want to go as a club, mate, and if we want to be successful in Europe next year, Moyes will be deliberating whether, if you can recoup a bit of that Benrahma money, whether you sell him on, get another player in, who knows? But that is my concern. That is my ultimate concern with Benrahma. He's very flashy, very good, but his team play, which Moyes loves a team player, his team play isn't there.
But I think you have to, because listen, I'm falling the Benny camp. Like, I know people were a bit unsure of him anyway, but I think you've got to give him just a little bit more time next season. I think, look, at the end of the day, mate, let's be honest, they're not going to go out there and spend loads of money. We are going to need squad depth. Benrahma will inevitably be part of that. And we've seen that with Fornals this season. Last season, at times, he was dreadful. And
Moyes didn't like him when he came in. Moyes didn't like him, did he? So,
and it's all that's what I mean with the Felipe Anderson thing, because it's all about mentality. I don't think Felipe Anderson really wanted to adapt to what Moyes was asking to do. That's just my personal opinion.
Spot on.
But I feel that Benrahma, I see him want to impress, maybe trying a little bit too hard. I think if he kept the ball better, made the right decisions, Moyes would say, you know what, I'll chuck him on with in the 65th or 60th minute because I trust him. It's all about trust with Moyes. It doesn't, whether it's working hard off the ball or making the right decisions, he needs to trust these players. So on that note, if he doesn't trust him next season, then you've got to back Moyes in that sense to bring in someone that he does trust, and that's what a lot of this summer's going to be about.
Yeah, no, spot on. Yeah, it's going to be about players investing and believing in his system. I think you've seen slow signs of Benrahma do that. His work rate's definitely improved. We know he's got quality. We saw that last year at Brentford, mate. He's what he can do on the ball. Finishing and all that, and skills and passing. His range of passing is very good as well. That's why we brought him to the club. But I just think that he needs to add that bit more to his game. And Benrahma does try. He definitely does strike me as the type of player that will work hard and that will stay invested, keep believing in himself, definitely. And because his career path, what did he get rejected by Nice early on or something? He got released by Nice. Yeah. So that's not an easy, downfall. But in terms of the summer as well, that's definitely what Moyes is going to look at. Team players rather than individual players, because that's ultimately what he's built his success off this season. That's what we built our success off. Look at Souček and Soufal, pure team players, mate. And others have followed suit. Same with Lingard.
Yeah, that's been a huge part of it. I think you see that with Moyes, and that's why I was a bit frustrated that I know he brought Lingard in, and that was almost a replacement to Haller, which is a bit dodgy anyway. Let's be honest. But that's why I wanted to see Moyes have money to get a striker in, because we haven't seen him. Although Mickey's adapted perfectly and done exactly, if not more, of what Moyes would expect of a striker. I wanted to see what Moyes could do if he could bring somebody in that he identified that he trusted. How big a summer do you think this is in terms of signings, and particularly for David Moyes going forward? Because if West Ham do get European football, there should be a large amount of financial money kicking in and around there for him to use. So do you think this is an opportunity actually for Moyes to make his stamp on this West Ham side and set us up in the long term?
Yeah, definitely. I know he's been alluding to it a lot, hasn't he? Taking control of transfers, getting the players in he wants, changing the scouting system, everything top to bottom to do with West Ham's transfers. He wants to change. And in terms of this summer, mate, if he's not going to get the money and if he's not being backed, no manager will ever be backed under these owners. We know that. But this summer is huge. Especially, if we qualify for Europe or the Champions League, this summer's massive in terms of getting that personnel in who, for one, have played in them competitions. I think is important as well. You look at the likes of En-Nesyri. I'm not sure if Daka's played in there. Abraham's played in there. So all these strikers we more or less been linked with have played in these competitions before. So I think that's massively important. Getting, João Mario as well has been linked this week.
João Mario would be a really astute signing. And I've sat here for weeks. I don't need to go and spend X amount of money if you can get the player in for the right price. And you look at players like that and you think, he's been at the club before. Moyes knows him. Moyes likes him. West Ham fans think
wants to come back as well. Yeah.
Why not? Only 28.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a no-brainer for me as well. And we proper loved him at the end, didn't we? You remember that game against Southampton? We won, was it 3-0 or something? And he scored a blinder. And you could see the pure passion as well. And he linked up with Arnie very well. And he's just very good at, retaining the ball, Mario. He's not necessarily quick, but he's just an intelligent player. Not getting a lot of game time at the moment, is he? I think he's out on loan again.
Yeah.
Just bring him back. If he wants to be part of that squad, if he wants to play for West Ham again, and obviously him and Moyes know each other very well, then need cheese on your crisps going, where's the bacon?
You see Steve Bruce on the bench with his cheese and onion and bovril. Loves it. Absolutely loves it. Needs St. Maximan with a headband to dig him out. Dan, tell everyone where they can find you for all top stats after the games.
At DanWaff98 on Twitter. Just post stats after the game. That's all I do. So, yeah. Don't dig yourself out, mate. It's good stuff. You come on here and all. I do, yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you everyone for joining us. Like the video before you leave. It all helps for some reason. Something to do with algorithms and search engines and things like that. Cheers, mate. Thank you. My video for my team against Newcastle will be out tomorrow morning. So check that one out. It's kind of like predicted 11, but I've just kept it a little bit more West Ham focused. If you do want to hear a little bit about my opinion on Newcastle, I put a video out this morning and expecting on how Newcastle can play against us. So check both of them out. Drop the likes on both. Subscribe to the West Ham Way if you're new. Take care, everyone. We'll see you Saturday. It will be 12 for the watch along, and then me and Dan will pop on after just to discuss the game. So fingers crossed we got the 3 points. Come on, your lines. Keep the faith. Top 4. See you later.